Welcome to The Outlet, an NBA podcast hosted by Nick Fay and Kory Waldron.
On this episode of The Outlet, Kory and I are joined by Kyle Russell to recap Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals and discuss the Heat heading to the NBA Finals. As always, you can catch The Outlet on all streaming platforms. Enjoy the show. All right, fellas, Eastern Conference Finals wrapped up. Heat took care of business in Game 6, picked up the W 125-113. They're heading back to the NBA Finals. How are we feeling after Miami beating Boston, pulling off another upset in a spot where they really weren't supposed to be at, beginning of the season, beginning of the bubble, beginning of the playoffs, and now we're here?
Yeah, I mean, the Miami Heat didn't even make the playoffs last year. Now in the NBA Finals, what a drastic turnaround. Jimmy Butler tonight, aggressive to start off, something that we talked about after the last game. He looked aggressive, and then Bam Adebayo. I mean, the guy was an absolute star tonight. Boston had no answer. And once Daniel Tice fouled out, I knew Boston was in trouble. It was that kind of night for Bam. And then production from the guards. Tyler Hero was really good once again. Andre Iguodala didn't miss a shot. Like, Max Kellerman might be right? I mean, if the death ray is on Earth, maybe you want Iggy taking that shot. Boston just really fell apart. Kudos to Miami. I felt like Game 6 was crucial for them. Like, if they lost tonight, I think the series could have went a different way. Took care of business. Big time win by the Miami Heat and back in the NBA Finals. I mean, that's exciting stuff.
I mean, yeah, everything about this game the game itself was great. Like you mentioned, so many players stepped up for Miami to help seal that win. It was amazing. But this has just been such a validating run for the Heat just as an organization. Like you mentioned, Kory, they didn't make the playoffs last year. They still had like Dion Waiters and James Johnson. Hassan Whiteside was still on the team. I mean, when the season ended last year, it was, hey, Dwayne Wade retired. We feel great. What happened next? Apparently, What happened next is they're going to have one of the greatest turnarounds, and now they're in the NBA Finals, and this is just very unreal right now.
It is crazy. And I mean, even Jimmy Butler got criticism for signing with the Heat. Like, it was like, why is Jimmy going to the Heat? He says he's a winner and like they're not close to being a contender. And here they are in the NBA Finals. But Kory kind of mentioned it. Bam Adebayo just was on a different level. He bounced back after a bad game, which it felt like he was bothered by his injury. But tonight, 32 points, 11 of 15 from the field, 10 of 11 from the free throw line, 14 rebounds, 5 assists. And, in the fourth quarter, they were running their offense through him at different points. He was just really dominant in multiple factors in this game. What are your thoughts on Bam and the way he played in this game and then the entire series?
I mean, Bam blew me away tonight. Because especially
that was deeper than I thought.
Yeah, well, especially after last game, right? We were kind of wondering if the wrist injury was going to be a big deal. Yeah. Clearly, the wrist is fine. Maybe the flick of the wrist, maybe it loosened it up a little bit. But Bam was
switch to a lighter, watch. Like, it was a little too heavy,
Yeah, I mean, he was incredible. Like you said, like in the fourth quarter, they were running it through Bam. Bam was bringing up the ball a few times. He's an extremely versatile guy. He's incredible. I mean, obviously, Kyle, you watched him for a majority of the season. Have you seen Bam become even better since like the All-Star break? Because I don't know, it feels like tonight was like one of the best Bam games I've seen all year.
Yeah, absolutely. So like tonight, I feel kind of like the way to put it, I would put it as tonight bookmarked the series well for what this series was for Bam, which was he was arguably the best player in this series. And I say bookmark because game 1, he had that block on Jason Tatum that won that game. And so opened it with a win, and then he closed it with a win tonight. But as to his improvement, I mean, I kind of put him in with Hero in the sense of like a testament to the Heat's development system. This is the guy that was backing up Hassan Whiteside a year ago. Now he went from a starter to an all-star, and I agree he's gotten even better. I think because he's starting to hit that mid-range jumper or more, and that's starting to open his game up. I mean, we saw a few of those tonight, and like just any good player, he keeps adding to his game even in mid-season.
Yeah, I agree. I think that mid-range jumper was huge. Some of those in-between shots, getting a little bit more comfortable with the ball down there. We know how good of a passer he's been most of the season, and that just kind of allows him to be more of a threat, having these different dimensions to his game. And there's probably an argument for him being the best player in the series, given his defensive impact. Running that zone early on in the series, it was only successful because you have such an elite defensive player in the middle anchoring that system. So, I think there's a fair argument. What would you guys say? Who were the top 5 players in the series, 1 through 5, if you had to rank them?
1 through 5, I probably would say Bam number 1. I would actually say Jaylen Brown number 2. Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler 3, Hero 4. Um,
I think Tatum was better than Hero.
Oh, I mean, I don't know. Tonight was I have a lot to say about Tatum tonight. I don't know, but yeah, I mean Tatum should be up there. You're right. Those last 2 second halves, I don't know. I was very poor game by Boston. We haven't talked Boston much. Boston was a huge disappointment tonight.
Before we get to Boston, Kyle, what were your top 5 of the series?
So I would say Bam 1, just like his defense on both ends of the floor, and just what he was able to consistently provide. Tatum 2, because really when Boston looked their best was whenever Tatum was going. Yeah, he still had his spurts, and that's one of the big disappointments is just the weird starts for Tatum. But still, he was arguably the most talented player in that series, though he didn't always live up to that. 3, I would actually give to Jaylen Brown, just because his two-way impact I felt was huge and a little underrated. 4, I put Butler because we still never saw that huge Jimmy Butler game. That's what I kept banking on for what how the Heat would close the series out. But still, he was just consistently an amazing player. And then 5, I would put Tyler Hero, which I felt kind of like encapsulates the series. Like Miami had 3 of the 5 best players.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that Tyler Hero is even in contention to be a top 5 player in the series, a rookie, not even a top 3 pick,
20
a guy,
years old.
Yeah, just somebody that I didn't necessarily anticipate playing clutch closing minutes. I thought he was going to get big minutes in the rotation, but there was still question anytime you have a young player going into a big playoff series, like how is he going to perform? And he was huge. If they didn't have him in the series, they wouldn't have won. Like he was that big of an impact, and he's getting fourth quarter minutes over, Goran Dragic at different points in the series and things like that, and running the offense over Jimmy Butler, and they wanted to give him the ball. So it just screams to the confidence they have in him. But Kory, kick us off with Boston. I know you got some takes cooking for us.
Wait, I have a question for you, Nick.
Yeah.
Who do you think was better to start off Boston? Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum? Who do you think was better in this series?
I think I knew what I was getting from Jaylen Brown every game. I knew that Jaylen Brown was going to probably give me an efficient 20. It might be from the threes. It might be from the fast break. He was going to play good defense. And Jason Tatum was, he gave you the high peaks, but the floor was so low. Like, I would love to see his first quarter numbers for the series because I wouldn't be surprised if he averaged like 2 points, 20% shooting or something like that because it felt like he never really got off to good starts in this series. So I feel like if you're looking for the more consistent guy, like Jaylen Brown was probably better overall throughout the series, and Jason Tatum just had those really high peaks where he was the best player on the floor and he looked like, arguably a top 10 NBA player, but it just wasn't there from quarter to quarter.
100%. I totally agree with you on that. I don't know. I just feel like you said, Jaylen Brown being so much more consistent, like you banked on him. I don't know what was up with Jason Tatum in the first half of these last 3 games. In critical games, he was just ice cold. Now, granted, you look at the box score after the game and you look, oh, Tatum was good throughout. It's like, no, like he had a terrible first half, and then in the second half, he was scoring at will. So that was disappointing. And, I've been harping on it this entire recap series. Marcus Smart, like it's a problem. I mean,
he shoots so much.
He had 22 shots tonight. Jaylen Brown only got 17, and then Kemba, who was in foul trouble, got 15. Now, Kemba being in foul trouble, that means more Marcus Smart. That's obvious. But the fact of the matter is, in the fourth quarter, Marcus Smart was 0 of 5 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3, and had committed 4 shooting fouls that led to 7 additional Miami Heat points in that fourth quarter. And that was in the final 10 minutes of the fourth quarter. And when you're taking more shots from a guy like Jaylen Brown, we've talked about, has been consistently good, it kind of goes back to whatever the argument was in the locker room. Because I just think at times Marcus Smart gets too confident and we see him take way too many jump shots. And that's what I saw happen once again is Marcus Smart kind of disrupt the flow of the offense by taking quick jumpers and taking away opportunities to get the ball moving for guys like Tatum and for Jaylen Brown. I felt like that was a huge loss, especially in the fourth quarter of this game.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, you bring up the Tatum point real quick. I remember a graphic they put up earlier that he was scoreless in the first quarter. Like we know it was the first half of Game 5, but he was scoreless in the first quarter for the last 3 games. 2 of those, obviously Miami won. That goes huge right there.
Yeah, because you want your superstar to kind of set the tone. You want to be the leader. You want to be the best player in this team. You want to be a top 10 guy. You want to be, that finals MVP in the future. You have to come out and kind of set the tone and score and get those easy buckets. And it felt like at times that like Jason Tatum doesn't understand how easy his offense can be, because as good as Miami was defensively in the series and running the zone and all different stuffs, at times he was just dusting whoever was on him. Like when he was locked in, Jay Crowder can't defend Jason Tatum when he's like in the zone. And like honestly, I didn't even think Jimmy Butler did a good job on Jason Tatum in different parts of the series either. It was just like Jason Tatum was his own worst enemy in the series, and it had something to do with the Heat, but it had more to do with him and his development. And again, obviously such a young player, you expect him to take those steps moving forward. But let's talk a little bit about Kemba Walker. What did you think about him in the series, and in terms of like expectations and all the hype about, he's a better fit in the Celtics than Kyrie. We have him here. We're going to take that next step, and it didn't seem to happen.
Well, we can put that to bed. Kyrie is better than Kemba Walker. That was pretty obvious from the get-go, even though we can have fun. I mean, I do agree in the sense that he's probably the type of ego guy that you want on the Celtics team, because Kyrie is a guy who's going to need more touches. So I think in that instance, that's not a wrong statement to make, but there are clearly 2 different tiers of players here. And Kemba was not good tonight. He made a couple of his fouls were just bad fouls on him, not being smart. And then, of course, getting into foul trouble early, 3 fouls in the first half just really disrupts your game, your rhythm. And he was bad from shooting for majority of this series. It wasn't too bad tonight, but for majority of this series, he couldn't hit a jump shot. And he, specifically a 3-point shot. A disappointing end to Kemba Walker's season for sure. And maybe it was health, but he did not look good the last couple rounds.
Yeah, I know that there was, it was like right before the bubble, there was, I think, something that happened with his knee. But he bounced back for the most part. For me, the thing that came to mind, you brought up Kyrie, obviously. I think in a vacuum, Kyrie is obviously the better player than Kemba, but I do think Kemba is a better fit for this team in the sense of, for the Celtics, as I see them constructed to win a title, that's because Jason Tatum steps up and is consistently that top 10 player that the ceiling is. Like you're saying, he's got to bring the floor up. So that's why I think makes Walker a better fit. So a lot of I think maybe expectations were a little too high for Walker, because really Tatum should have been carrying the burden on the team. One of the big problems that kept happening for him this series specifically was any sort of pick and roll that had Bam, because hey, guess what? Bam can switch on to you and guard you, no problem.
Yeah,
so,
especially because he wasn't like, he's not the same like cardiac Kemba. Like he's just not the same guy he was a year or two ago. Give it might be the knees, and Bam being such a versatile defender, I just felt like that was an area they could attack. And then also I thought that he did a great job of attacking him on the defensive end, like on a lot of backdoor cuts, getting the switches, really punishing him. A couple games in the series they went and attacked him. And I think on the offensive end, like maybe the expectations were too high, but I think the idea of having a player of Kemba Walker's level is like, yeah, Jason Tatum might quite not be there yet, but we have Kemba and he can close out some games for us and kind of put us in those spots. And you really didn't get that in this series. And I think that's what they needed, because Jaylen Brown is a very good player. And like we talked about, that 2-way guy, but he's not necessarily like the closing type, at least yet in his NBA career. He still needs to add a little bit more to his game. So when Tatum didn't have it and Kemba couldn't step up, and Gordon Hayward not even being fully 100%, they just didn't have a guy to get them those clutch buckets. And like going to the series in your head, you think like, who's going to win these close games? The team that has, the 4-3 good offensive players, or the team that's like gritty and grinds it out? You might lean with the offensive team that has the ISO player like Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker, but those guys weren't good, and the Miami guys were even better.
100%. And then, like we mentioned, the front court for Boston, they need to attack that this offseason. Daniel Tice, I think, was good for parts of this series, but like we mentioned throughout these recaps, in the preview, Bam dominated this matchup.
Do you feel like they missed a chance in the season not making a move at the trade deadline to upgrade that center position?
Yeah, Dwayne Dedmon would have been a guy, right? They're just like coming to mind, because someone who just gave you a little bit more size. But they definitely need to address that this offseason. I feel like Gordon Hayward could be on the way out. Not saying that, that I would condone it fully, but like Miles Turner for Gordon Hayward, something I thought about earlier today, just watching the Celtics. Not that helps the rebounding category, but at least it adds more defense.
They'd be the best defensive team in the league, probably, other than having to hide Kemba.
Yeah, I mean, it would help some issues for them, because the bench, I think, is a problem for Boston right now. And of course, you're going to be top heavy, but if you move that Gordon Hayward money, it might free up some stuff, because again, he doesn't necessarily fit unless you want to move Marcus Smart, which I don't know. I know we love Marcus Smart, but when does Marcus Smart not take 22 shots? Like he can't take 22 shots in an elimination game when Jaylen Brown is cooking like that. Like I understand maybe Brown's gonna be more aggressive, but I was literally pulling my hair out watching Marcus Smart in that fourth quarter just ruin the game. And he brings a lot of good things for the Celtics team, but there are times where you just question if it's the right fit in particular.
He's a pure X factor, good or bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
wild card.
Yeah, you really don't know what to expect. And he brings so much defensively. Maybe it's a little bit of Boston, depending so much on him, playing him 35 minutes and not having him in the smaller bench role. What did you think about Marcus Smart in the series, Kyle?
I don't know. Actually, personally, I felt like I had a lot more respect for Marcus Smart, because that dude did not back down. Like Miami, they always say, oh, not everybody's built for us. You have to have a certain mentality. Marcus Smart has that mentality. He is just going to continue to grind. I was very impressed with him. Yeah, to your point, he did take way too many shots, but the defense was amazing. He did such a good job on Hero in this game specifically. He kept Hero from ever really getting off. It's just kind of the problem that you see with certain players that are overconfident. He just takes too many shots. The only way I can see around that is players like Tatum, Brown, working that out with him, saying, hey, we're the best two players. You need to take less shots, be more complimentary.
Yeah, you are, the fifth option or fourth option on this offense, or whenever you're out here. Yeah, you probably even want to get Gordon Hayward more shots than him just because of their offensive skill sets.
Right. And also, in this series in particular, Miami wanted Marcus Smart to shoot. I mean, he got a lot of good looks. And of course, a guy like Marcus Smart, when you get a good look, you're all right. Well, I'm shooting this. And I think, maybe you're just making the extra pass. Like you said, I think ideally you would have liked to get Hayward more involved. This game clearly showed he wasn't healthy. My dad watched this game with me, and he was like, is Hayward just not good from that broken ankle a couple years ago? I was like, no, he actually was good. He sprained his ankle. He's just not the same right now, because it was just that noticeable that he was not 100% out there.
And he wasn't in sync with them. It just felt very disjointed. He had good individual plays, but as a unit, you just could feel the cohesion was off. You won a playoff series without him. That's going to happen. They won 2. You know what I mean? So it's just things are not going to feel the same way when you add a player back of his caliber, and you have to readjust the chemistry. But anything else you guys want to say on the Boston side?
They'll be back. I mean, this is still a really good team. I think there's a little bit of a roster tink that you could make to make this team slightly better. But I mean, they're going to be probably fighting for this spot again next year. I don't see them regressing at all. Probably just getting better. And we have this quick turnaround. Some guys get a little bit healthier. They're playing in 3 months, 4 months from now again.
Yeah, it'll be interesting and see what they do with the roster, because I think they're clearly a little bit behind some of those teams, especially because you expect, the Bucks to probably get a little bit better going to next year. Obviously, the Nets getting back KD and Kyrie, and then even Philadelphia, depending on how that situation goes.
Right.
There's a lot of different things that can happen, and Miami took a major step this year, and I think the confidence that a guy like Tyler Hero, Bam, even Duncan Robinson having some success in the series carrying to next year should be really big for them. So Boston will definitely be back. They'll be back in the postseason for the next 10 years. They're going to be a very good team having Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum as a duo, but I still think you need to make sure you take full advantage of that. But going to Miami real quick, any other guys you want to give a shout out to for, stepping up big in the series or stepping up big tonight?
I don't think any of us have mentioned Iguodala yet for tonight. Huge night for Iguodala. 4 for 4 from 3. Like you were saying earlier about how we were letting Marcus Smart shoot, they were absolutely letting Iggy shoot, and that was hurting us for the last few games. But tonight he capitalized on that. Iguodala was great. Who else? Yeah, Robinson had a good game finally, 5 to 7 from 3.
Yep.
So there was a good number of contributors for Miami tonight. We ended up with 6 players scoring in double digits. So good team game. This is probably the best offensive game Miami had this series. And I'm just glad we closed it out with it.
Put up 125. That's not something you don't necessarily anticipate from this Heat roster. And Iguodala, I felt like if he could hit his threes and provide offensive impact, it's easy to keep him on the floor because you want that defensive player, you want that vet, a guy you can kind of count on. And he did that tonight. Kory, anybody else on Miami that stuck out for you?
Definitely need to point out Duncan Robinson. We mentioned last game, right? He had that really hot first quarter, then cooled off for the rest of the game. Tonight, he was on fire. And he had no chill on a lot of his pulls. So obviously, good seeing him. And like you mentioned, Iggy was great majority of tonight. Obviously, his jump shot is the biggest question mark when he's hitting it. He hit free throws tonight as well. So the supporting cast, I think Jay Crowder, even though his three-point shot has really dipped off the back half of this series, finds a way to always be in the right spot, cutting to the hoop, still plays good defense. So Crowder still gets, to me, a shout-out because he's very dependable.
Yeah, he's just a consistent vet out there and gave you good defense the entire series. Just a good body, good cuts, like you said, Kory, and just willing to do what the team needs him to do. Any quick thoughts on, obviously, the NBA Finals between the Lakers and Heat before we get out of here?
Real quick before I add one more thing that I forgot to mention. So we also saw a closing lineup change for Miami tonight. So like in Game 4 where Crowder didn't really have a shot going, so they put Iggy in for the closing lineup. Tonight, Dragic wasn't really had it going well, so Robinson played in his place for the closing lineup tonight. So it's interesting to see that Miami has that closing lineup flexibility, which now to go into the next game for the Lakers, I wonder if that's an advantage for them, that they can tinker with their closing lineup to get different results. What do you think of that?
I think that Miami going to the finals, they just have more versatile pieces where it'd be okay for them to switch different guys in, where there's like a lot of players around that same talent level. So like you said, Kyle, they have more closing lineups to throw out there, where if you look at the Lakers side, there's only so many good combinations they really can put out there given their roster. So it could provide Spoelstra with some tools for the next round.
Yeah, I think it was a great adjustment. Again, I think to your point, Miami can throw a lot of different looks at this Lakers team. And unlike what Anthony Davis has dealt with the past two series, they actually have defenders they can throw at Anthony Davis and cause him trouble. So I'm really interested to see this matchup.
Maybe the best AD defender in the league in Bam is a possibility. We'll see obviously next round, and we'll give our picks on the finals prediction. But as always, a pleasure, guys. Kyle, thank you for hopping on. And as always, you can catch The Outlet on all stream platforms.
Peace out, knuckleheads.